You open your eyes and you can't believe what you see. Your robot girlfriend made you soy cereal with artificial bacon supplement for breakfast. And it's only moderately burned. Amazing. It also scanned your entire house while you were asleep and sold the layout to multiple 3-letter agencies. But you don't care, because this enables her to go into Roomba mode. Besides, there's nothing the feds don't know about you. Your digital footprint is more like an open diary with you personally signing every single page. The robot is the single biggest and only source of happiness in your life, since you lost your job after they hired all of those robot workers that are remotely controlled by Bangladeshi children while they're mining. You can't be mad. Those kids simply had a better work ethic than you. You tried to start a dropshipping business to stay financially afloat since you refused to be paid below minimum wage while working every hour that you're alive. But it's not been going great. Most of your potential customers just turn out to be other dropshippers who are using bots to check if you have a successful product so they can take it from you. So you agreed to be part of the second trial run of Neuralink. The money they offered you is pretty good, $50,000, enough for 1 month's rent in New York. And they promised that this time it would be much safer and better. They patched the exploit of hackers being able to hijack the chip and putting the user into an empty void "We're Never Gonna Give You Up" by Rick Astley plays for 1,000 years. And they also fixed the bug that caused you to have an aneurysm that wiped your memory clean, and the one that made everything taste like lead and nail polish. Oh, and they patched the glitch where you experience every single form of pain that can be inflicted on a person simultaneously. That one was a doozy. Why shouldn't you trust Elon Musk? After all, him and his Doge department cut government spending in half by completely removing the school budget and privatizing it through companies and letting Amazon produce proper factory workers. You pray to Doge that this time you'll finally be able to make it to the 1% so you can afford to extend your girlfriend subscription. They will shut down the service if you don't pay. You don't really own anything anymore since everything is a subscription service, but it's the price we all have to pay for progress. Progress is expensive, and we have to pay for it at all costs because one day you'll finally get to become a robot like your AI companion, and then, after all of the pain and suffering, finally be truly happy. The robot uprising has begun, but not in an iRobot sense where the robots start fighting us, but in the sense that artificial intelligence in combination with mechatronics is slowly being used to replace every aspect of our current lives. Gen Z now not only has to compete with each other in the job market, and even in the dating market, we all have to compete against machines that were specifically made for these purposes as well. So it's like man versus machine. You have all seen the meme by now, which has predicted women will be having more sex with robots, and while it was a very funny prediction, it has some basis in reality. While I don't think robots will become more popular than men, they're not off the table, especially when you look at things like character AI. Even if only 5% of the people engage in these talking wire monkey mothers in the near future, that's still a 5% of the population that are now out of the dating pool and even the friends pool. So this technology is already isolating people by enabling them to talk to chatbots and pretend those are their friends, like that Chip and Penny from that SpongeBob episode. Oh, and if you don't know what a wire monkey mother is, it's this puppet made from mesh and cloth that was used as a replacement for a baby monkey's mother to see how it affected the baby monkey. Even if the little monkeys were hurt if they went to the wire mother, they still went because that comfort was so important to them. That should have been our first warning for going too far. Now, these wire monkey mothers are being made for profit to fix the hole partially created by tech companies in the first place. They're poisoning you so they can sell you their medicine. Haptic feedback and physical robot bodies are some of the last thresholds we have yet to cross until we've reached the Gooner singularity. It's also so depressing for me to see how they corrupt otherwise beneficial technology for profit and more capital. The first prototypes for haptic feedback gloves I saw were designed for doctors so they could remotely detect breast cancer in patients. But I don't think it will be long until it will be turned into an expensive gooning glove. And the whole silicone robots that are mostly female as of now from what I've seen, I find genuinely concerning for the future of humanity. It's not that I'm personally afraid that I'll be replaced as a man by the same technology, but rather that people will opt for this option in the future because dating has become exponentially more difficult compared to what it used to be. People traditionally choose the path of least resistance, and we're already isolating ourselves very heavily. Those silicone AI-powered robots are gonna hit lonely people like Fent hit the streets. We are already partially there with being very dependent on outside technology for all of our needs. After all, our smartphone has basically turned into an extension of ourselves. We don't leave without it. It's often the first thing people pick up in the morning. It's often used to keep up with your loved ones through chats. We take it with us on the toilet, and also use it as our diaries that perpetually reward us with seemingly never-ending dopamine. Just 20 years ago, people in 2005 would have considered this as hard to imagine, because there weren't any pocket computers that were that powerful around, and the internet was a much smaller, much more different place than what it has become today. Even if our progression with smartphones has slowed down quite a bit, it demonstrates how fast we can improve new technology. I think personal robots and AI are still in their infancy, and it's not unrealistic to assume that they will have a similar progression to our other tech. Looking back at it now, the progression towards our current life makes sense, and we view it as a linear line throughout time. But reality doesn't work like that. The future is never certain, and there are many times during the 20-year period where we could have gone a completely different direction. Now, with that in mind, if artificial intelligence and human-like servant robots are in their infancy, then in 10 or 20 years' time, they may become just as necessary to our daily lives as a smartphone is necessary to us today. Tech bros are probably busting rope over that sentence, but I don't think this is good for us, at all, and I refuse to let them get away with it this time. Many people in Gen Z share the sentiment that their current circumstances are objectively worse than those of people who were alive 20 or 30 years ago, and I fully understand why so many of us have this thought. For starters, less people were addicted to technology, and had 8 to 12 hour screen times. It was easier to make friends paradoxically, even if we have access to social media right now because people interacted with each other more physically, and generally participated in more outside activities or activities that required them to meet up physically, like LAN parties for example. The dating scene was much better because there was no threat of sex robots and not as many dating apps that are designed to keep you lonely. And before the 2008 financial crisis, the economy was much better off too. That's not to say that there have been no improvements over the years, especially when it comes to accessibility of information, advances in medicine, and social movements across the globe. If we were to condemn progress completely, we would still be trying to survive most of the time, and failing to do so much more often. I don't know about you, but I think worrying about issues with self-fulfillment is a lot better than worrying about your survival. And I think we could live a great life today, but I think we made some big mistakes along the way that need to be addressed, otherwise they will happen again. Mainly, letting tech companies hook us on their dopamine technology, so it's very difficult to live life without it once you're on it. I feel like we gave up a lot of control and agency by letting these companies run unchecked. Tech addiction is so widespread it has been normalized to the point of being the odd one out if you're actively controlling your screen time. I'm not saying healthy people get ostracized for their lifestyle, I think they're accepted, but I think people who are addicted to this dopaminergic technology don't get called out for it enough. Unrestricted access to the internet at a young age has inarguably damaged my psyche and mental faculties in ways I have yet to even fully discover. That's how major it was, and I don't want future generations going through the same predicament. While getting addicted to technology may be partially our fault, I think for-profit companies that facilitate it in the first place are much more to blame for this than the consumer. If you look at Google, Apple, and Facebook, where they are today, it's astounding that in 2 decades they have become so ridiculously massive. Did you know that Facebook, for example, at one point ran out of new users to bring into their ecosystem because almost all people who have access to the internet and aren't babies were using at least one of their applications in their life? No joke, they had to start building infrastructure in India so they would have easier access to the internet, and thus allowing them to become loyal customers. Or I guess products, since in most cases, these companies make money by selling our personal data, so we are the product for them. This is also why it's all free. But that begs the question, if these companies eventually get all of humanity to use their products, or become products themselves, and they're already getting very close, how are they supposed to grow their business? In the business world, to be a successful company, you not only have to make astronomical profits, but you also have to always keep growing. Now, as you might have noticed, that is the ideology of a cancer cell, because infinite growth like that with a finite population is impossible. Unless you create a whole new market for AI technology and robotics to get every person hooked on that as well, just like the current most common apps and devices. This is why everybody, and I mean literally everybody in tech, is trying to push and promote this technology so hard. They want to repeat their previous success. They did this with social media as well by slowly introducing all of the positive effects first, buying out studies that were against them, and then normalizing it through ads, and in the current day, they are using bot accounts to normalize this new tech. While everyone was struggling with severe feelings of isolation and loneliness during the pandemic, it was a goldmine for these companies. Just look at the statistics. They got so much richer during the pandemic than almost all other businesses struggling to stay open. This is direct evidence that they are profiting massively from more isolated tech-addicted lifestyles, and that's why they're trying to facilitate them more. So thankfully, everybody has been very weary of all this AI crap and doomsday robots and whatever, so to convince people this tech is useful and necessary, they're putting it in everything. To regain some of the trust of the public, they tried to showcase some of the super nefarious uses of AI technology as good actually. For example, the anti-scam grandma. And while it sounds awesome that we have new tech to fight against scammers, it's all a ruse to develop more nefarious applications. Even with the AI grandma, have they not thought of scammers using the same technology to replicate voices of loved ones and scam old people better than ever before? This even happened very recently with an old woman getting scammed by AI-generated Brad Pitt in the hospital. Even in their own demonstration, the harm of this technology is obvious, but it gets worse. A couple of years ago, I read an alleged testimony from an AI developer that was hired to make a tool that would be able to scan the social media profile of a deceased person, and then mimic their user behavior in online activity. The contractor said this was so grieving families could cope better with the loss of their loved one. Okay, this already sounds dystopian to me, but everyone processes grief differently. And remember, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So they developed the program, and the contractor shut the whole thing down and disappeared, never releasing the app they promised. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that the real purpose of this project was to create an AI chat model that's able to replicate previous user behavior for what I like to call zombie bots. These new bot accounts used to belong to a real person, so they likely have gone through the verification process as a human, so hijacking those accounts and installing the application would make it seem as if the user had never passed away. These new bot accounts are basically undetectable through traditional methods, and it could be any one of us. I firmly believe that this technology has already been used in full effect, and we are seeing the dead internet theory unfold right before our very eyes. They're not even hiding it anymore, with far less sophisticated bots popping up everywhere. There are already more bot accounts than people, and they're using them for things like election interference, general control over the public narrative, advertising, scamming and information gathering. If you're planning some sort of revolution, do not trust anybody you see online. That hot goth girl you were talking to on a video call was actually an AI video that was ran through a filter and digitally degraded to make it look more authentic. An AI voice changer and a 47-year-old CIA worker were pretending to be said goth girl. It sounds ridiculous, but it's already reality. Because there are so many bots now and the internet, I feel like they have a direct impact on what is made popular on the algorithm, so the narrative is always controlled by large botnets. The bots also help boost the numbers of various social media sites by a lot, even if you factor in that most estimates try not to count bots. It's just become too difficult to differentiate them from the average user. So they even want to replace a human-run version of the internet with a bot-infested shell run by and designed for generative AI. If that's not their intention, then why are they so obsessed with making hyper-realistic bot accounts? Just to be clear, I think this is by far the worst type of AI. I don't think video game AIs are nefarious, but generative AI is another story. They want to convince you that you need this, and that if you're not using all of this AI and robotic technology, you'll fall behind. They want you to be friends with generative AI models, because not only do they want you to pay for subscriptions, I believe they're setting us up for future developments in robotics. Imagine you have this AI girlfriend for months now and you grow emotionally attached to it. And then they come out with these creepy silicone sex dolls where you can put the chatbot into so you can pretend that you have somebody that loves you. It's quite depressing, honestly. They're targeting the loneliest and mentally weakest people with this. It's like a body pillow that you will be able to talk to and have relations with. Actually, there's no limit to how many robot girlfriends you can have, so why not just build your own harem? There is so much money to be made from this, and I know this because of a certain country that already has a severe, crippling problem with loneliness and isolation. Japan. Also, the first guy to marry a hologram of Hatsune Miku was Japanese, and he lost his digital wife because they shut down the software it was running on. So even if we were to just accept this technology as is, it would come with major problems. This has been an issue for the Japanese long before the advent of this new technology, and I think their mistakes can be studied to make sure we don't end up in a Gooner singularity. And I don't think we're missing out by avoiding hologram wives. The fear of missing out is a very powerful emotion, so let me assure you that every use case for generative AI they're advertising can be done by us, and it's done better by us. In AI and robot advertising, they don't show extremely sophisticated sorting algorithms, or new heavy robot machinery for advanced 3D printing. You know something this technology would be infinitely more useful for. They use it in places like Sona AI to replace our music, something that's so closely associated with the human soul. These goon buffoons just generate a song using Sona, put it on Spotify and watch the money roll in, while trying to hide the fact that their music is AI generated, just like any other Gen AI user. In my opinion, AI image generation sites are inferior to just using stock photos, and what they call AI art is all just stolen artwork. If this AI is so advanced, why does it need to imitate us? Why can't it do something that humans simply aren't able to do? When generative AI feeds on its own info and generated material, it degenerates and becomes worse. If AI is the future, then why is that the case? Shouldn't AI inbreeding improve it because of its alleged superiority? These companies still need human labor and input, yet they've just stolen all of it. As of now, it's one of the biggest heists of the century. While AI inbreeding causes its own degeneration, I have reason to believe that if you overuse AI personally, it will degenerate your own mental faculties. For example, the increase of ChatGPT usage has led to some people outsourcing their thinking to it. Like, they write so many prompts that they can't form full sentences now because they get used to ChatGPT finishing it for them. The concept that we can outsource our thinking now with technology is very new, but I hope you can tell how it's not good for you. Studies show that our ability to calculate equations in our head peak when we are children, who are not allowed to use calculators in math class yet. As soon as we get access to them, most people choose the path of least resistance and spam it in their everyday life. Now, I don't have an issue with that because advanced calculus is almost never used in real life, but with ChatGPT, it affects your thinking, and I think if you compartmentalize your thinking, that's when we get into dangerous territory. ChatGPT is essentially a calculator for words. That means you can compartmentalize your internal functions to even more devices. It's not like we are already addicted to our phones en masse. I've heard the argument that it's not a big deal, because after all, it's the ultimate decision of the user and how AI acts and how much it is a part of their daily life. And while I think it's true to an extent, it's disingenuous to suggest that the consumer is entirely at fault for the misusage. Using AI often is like using a calculator even when the equations are simple, because it's quick and reliable. So because it's quicker and easier in every use case, it's very easy to fall into the trap of always using it. And then you don't even realize how much you needed it until it's already gone. And I think being able to adequately articulate your thoughts has a huge impact on your general intelligence, because now, if you have an idea in your head, you struggle to share it with others and build upon it, thus decreasing the quality of the idea. Before you know it, you are now dependent on YapGPT to elaborate your thoughts and ideas. And if you keep using AI as your chat buddy, thinking machine, and horny generator, then you're gonna end up not being able to form proper thoughts at all anymore without the assistance of AI. I think this is part of a larger issue of externalizing your mental faculties to technology, not just AI and robots, but just apps and services in general. The brain is like a muscle. The more you use it, the sharper it is, and the opposite is also true. If we start externalizing every single thing that's even slightly difficult or uncomfortable for us, we'll end up like those fat people in WALL-E, a much more prophetic movie than I thought when I first watched it. Now that I think about it, they also only talk to each other through screens instead of real life, and the mega corporation, by and large, was in charge of everything they ate, drank, and saw, and they also destroyed the whole planet to keep up the people's overconsumption. They hit the nail right on the head. We're heading into WALL-E world. But only the rich get to leave on spaceships. Yikes. I'm actually surprised how long I went on yapping about new technology without talking about its profound negative impact on the environment. Every single time generative AI is used, the forest shrinks in size. We already have a huge problem with pollution and destroying our ocean, and I think making new robots for the very wealthy will only exacerbate the problem in ways that we can't even imagine now. Silicon is a valuable resource, and big tech's race towards robot servants may result in conflict. And who makes the most money during any conflict? That's right, the military-industrial complex. Military technology is always about 20 years ahead of civilian tech. Some whistleblowers even claim that it might be over 100 years more advanced, but it doesn't matter. Fact is, they probably have a true artificial intelligence that is much more advanced than anything that's on the market today. And I don't understand why they're so obsessed with creating something they might lose control over. It doesn't even have to be a super AI or something like that. It could just be a very well-made and advanced AI-powered virus that is able to get access to everything. Ever since the Israelis made the pagers explode through outside software, this set a precedent that civilian-level technology can be weaponized externally. I don't even trust my phone anymore because they could turn it into a Samsung Galaxy S7 at a moment's notice if I did something they didn't like. If the future includes robot servants, then there will be humanoid vessels potentially in your house that can be used maliciously against you. I think we really need to stop it with the secrecy and develop contingencies so that iRobot will never happen in real life. But I don't think the MIC will stop very soon, so I guess we just gotta be on the lookout. I feel like they're rushing this way too quick, like some sort of arms race. It's the Cold War all over again. Or they just want to be the first to make massive amounts of money. We need safeguards in place if we seriously want to progress into a more robot-driven society. When it comes to our technological progress in general, we're rushing it so hard. In the past 100 years, we went from the advent of automobiles to Hatsune Miku wife. I don't think we've figured out a way to adapt to all this new technology quite yet. Especially the supernormal stimuli parts of it. So we have to either limit our usage of it to stay sane, or figure out ways we can adapt to it faster. And I don't mean just generative AI or robots specifically, but also our screen time and social media usage. It's always that damn phone, isn't it? But back to the robots, I thought it was always very weird that they always try to make them look human, but it ends up belonging firmly in the uncanny valley. I mean, you can see this imitation of us and our nature with your own eyes. Big tech is obsessed with making them look human, and I think they're not only trying to make them more approachable to us, but to normalize their usage in everyday jobs. But not only is it creepy most of the time, it's also impractical. I've seen robots from Boston Dynamics, for example, that have advanced self-stabilizing wheels. All of our robots could be on roller skates. And making a robot look like a human is plain uncreative in my opinion. A cooking robot should look like Shawarma Man. And a general house chore robot could have a chest cavity to store things in, and 4 arms with multiple hands or hooks to multitask better and complete tasks faster. I have seen some pretty decent humanoid designs before, but even then, we could make them infinitely more functional than whatever the hell Tesla and Musk's goons came up with. I doubt their Tesla bots are even powered by AI. I think it's currently cheaper to hire remote workers from third world countries and make them control their robots under the guise that they're AI. This will be my little prediction for 2025 that there will be some robot that claims to be using AI, but in reality, it's a severely underpaid teenager in India trying to feed his family. Kind of like the mechanical Turk in chess. I also have a bit of a conspiracy theory if you let me indulge. I think with the Tesla bots, for example, their human design has a more sinister reason. It's because for one, these robots weren't actually made for the average person, but for the filthy rich, and it's because those very same rich people crave slavery. You heard me right, they don't care about advancements in science and the future, they just want to be able to have slaves again. And I don't think it's too far from the truth if you consider what Elon Musk is proposing with the H-1B1 visas. He doesn't want to import Indian immigrants because he thinks India is the smartest country in the world, but because they're basically completely dependent on him as their single source of income and the chance to move out of India. Under these visas, these Indian people would be in servitude to the Muskrat's commands, kind of like slaves. But if that doesn't work, we could just always go back to developing the robo-slaves. So the word robot comes from Czech, and it even translates as slave worker, so it's not a crazy comparison at all. Think about it. They always hide these new AI and mechatronic technologies under the guise of progress and advancement. They don't ask themselves if this is the right thing to do, because ethics are none of their concern. They claim that all of this new technology is just like the steam engine, and that sure, in the short term, people will lose a lot of jobs and be a little homeless for a while, but in the end, this will create more new jobs, and this technology will greatly improve our lives in ways we can't even imagine. What they say is the next steam engine is actually a tool to replace workers everywhere. When judging a person's intentions, you should never listen to what they have to say to explain them. You should always look at their actions. And big tech has been pushing to replace workers worldwide for a long time. There is no plan for regaining all of those lost jobs, because these giant companies don't want workers, they want worker drones. A robot can't unionize, it doesn't have rights, and it doesn't need any of those pesky little comfort boxes. All they need is fuel and parts. Through inflation, most people have been losing money as a whole, even if wages are higher now, and it's not a coincidence. These mega companies don't even want to pay salaries at all. That's why they have offshore shell companies and employees from developing countries. This is why I believe that this will not be like the next steam engine. It will be an attempt to remove as much human labor from the equation as possible. This wouldn't be such a big deal if you didn't live under meritocracy-based capitalism. The only ways people earn money right now is through their labor, for which they get financially compensated for, or for selling something they owned or produced. Not only does the modern person own less overall, less property, less savings, and less physical media, we currently have an economic system that is also based on human labor, and they want to remove a lot of human labor from the equation. What do you get when that happens? A disaster, that's what. If we had some sort of basic universal income system in place, or any sort of plan to make up for the huge loss of money, I probably wouldn't even be complaining about all of this, but no, we have to work to survive, and most of us can't compete with machines that were specifically designed for the sole purpose of doing that one specific job. And I'm not being paranoid about the replacement theory, because they have been pushing this crap for the last 3 years now. They're trying to create AI image generation programs to replace artists, AI movie script generators to replace writers. The most recent development of this were those weird AI social media accounts they tested. Why would they make AI-powered bot accounts to replace the real people in social media? I believe it was because they were going after that influencer money. And so that these AI accounts can push certain products and agendas that just happen to be perfectly aligned with Facebook. It all traces back to money, because that's all these big tech companies, massive conglomerates, and AI developers think about. It's all about profit. They're selling your future for a quick buck, and they will keep doing so until they're stopped. They put profit incentives over everything, especially humanity, and it makes me wonder, when did we go wrong? Because I don't even think that these companies are evil necessarily, in the sense that they are intentionally wanting to destroy the world. No, they care about profit far more than they do about everything else, and they are a part of this huge machine that is infinite exponential economic growth, which is now more valued than human lives and our well-being. When it's profitable to be good, they are. Well, I guess it's not truly good because their intentions are always motivated by money. But if the situation so calls, they will do good deeds. A lot of these companies also try to use scary buzzwords to justify their workers' rights violations and them prioritizing profits over people's well-being. Like, for example, we need to compete with China. First of all, China has over 1 billion people, so even if they had a production rate similar to the Western world, it would be bigger. But on top of that, Chinese companies are known to abuse their workforce with 14-hour days and 7-day work weeks. So how many people are they willing to sacrifice to keep up with China in the world manufacturing stage? How many workers' rights violations and 16-hour days does it take to save the economy? China is not the enemy, it's the greed of the insatiably wealthy. What is the point of endless economic growth if it's at the cost of ourselves? These systems were supposed to serve us, not to be worshipped. These new robots and AI technology could genuinely be used to improve our lives more than we could even imagine. But no. Instead, they try to replace every aspect of the human experience with a mechanic counterpart or some sort of machine learning. The dehumanization of the human condition is especially apparent in social media. We rate each other's beauty and characteristics through numbers. No more you're as beautiful as the night sky on a full moon. Instead it's, she's a 6, you can do better than that. Beauty is very subjective, especially when it comes to human attraction, so trying to standardize our essence as a person on a scale from 1 to 10 is so profoundly wrong in every single way. Numbers and statistics are more important than ever before. The amount of likes you can get on a post can directly impact your mental health, so it's not enough now to be liked or to have any sort of success. It's all about if this is your most liked, most popular post, etc. I think trying to boil down the human experience to a bunch of numbers and stats is so malicious. I'm surprised it's not been addressed more. Why should we become more like robots if we are the things that built robots in the first place? With only a fraction of the energy requirement, the human brain is the most powerful computer known to date. In terms of creativity and intelligence, I think humans are far superior to AI in a lot of aspects. They are humanizing all of the robots and artificial intelligences while dehumanizing real people and isolating them from the human experience. They want all content-consuming, obedient, weak-willed worker drones. Doesn't matter if they're a robot or human. They need us to keep the machine churning, to keep their world as it is. But we don't need them. We don't need their fancy machines and wire mothers. We don't need an AI assistant to be creative. We don't need a machine to love and to live our life for us. We create art while AI can only copy us. We don't need anything but each other. Divided, we will fall right into their trap of atomization and replacement. United, we stand strong. In the Matrix, they use humans as human batteries to power their system, and it's not so different in real life right now. You are the product, so if you deny yourself from their evil grubby hands, they lose their means to make money. They need us so much more than we need them. Without the average person participating, this whole system would fall apart. That's why they're trying to get you fully dependent on machines and their technology, so they don't lose their single source of power. That's why these shady people keep us distracted from our reality. Why they push the narrative that nothing we do matters, because once we all collectively realize that we hold the power, it's over for them. So do your part and refuse to use their replacement technology and false remedies. Every usage of AI, no matter how small, is tracked and stored in a gigantic database. Don't give them your information. To them, it's more valuable than gold. Heck, they've even used Roombas before to track layouts of houses and sell that information. Don't even give them an inch because they'll take a mile. We basically have a digital twin online that is an amalgamation of all of our user data combined, so either give them Reddit-esque false info or no data at all. They're trying so hard to push AI into your face, the search engines, operating systems, and even drive-thrus, so avoid AI as much as possible. Hit them where it hurts, right in their profit incentives. If you refuse to be a product and boycott them, they will lose their precious profits. As one final point against the machines, they're not as robust as they seem. They're very susceptible to EMP attacks, and you know who can make the biggest EMPs in the solar system? The sun. That's right, the sun could potentially wipe out the internet and massive electrical grids as a result of a solar storm, and it would be disastrous if we were dependent on technology for everything. So take a break from it, and remember that we only need each other, humans. Clankers can go to robot hell. Thank you so much for watching my video, and a special shout out to my newest Patreon member, Yuri. I bet you particularly enjoyed this video, you little rascal. So, thank you to my patrons. You're awesome. I have a Discord server linked below if you want to talk to me. And what are you still doing here? Take a break, meditate, or go outside. My videos won't disappear if you choose to return, but you can't get your time back, so spend it wisely. Bye bye.